Well, hello there and welcome back. This is episode 35 of my Minecraft 1.15 Let's Play. I'm here in my zombie pigman XP farm, and this is the first chance I've actually gotten to use this thing. I set this all up, and then I went on an end run, and then I spent the last week working on that blast chamber and everything, and I haven't really had a chance to use this, and now I finally am. I brought something like 80 shulker boxes full of enchantment books and items to enchant. I ended up enchanting all of these items right here. I've got some extra shulker boxes full of mending and breaking and a few other enchantment books that I didn't end up using. And then I've got all these empty ones right here. I've already brought down a couple load of empty shulker boxes down to the gold sorter, the shulker box loader down there. So I need to take this last load right here, and here's my inventory that I put in here so I could have a full inventory. So let's go down on there. Can't forget to turn this off before I head down there. Very important. As predicted, this crafting system is a whole lot nicer than the old way of doing things. Ended up with about a half a shulker box of gold blocks, and did not take me long at all to craft it. However, one thing I did notice is that this item elevator right here does not actually work very well for shulker boxes. If you send more than one shulker box through at a time, it can get stuck in the wrong state. It's because of this comparator that fires off an observer, and the comparator is looking at the hopper, and sometimes these don't work very well with non-stackable blocks, because sometimes items can come through pretty quickly, and this might fire off twice, and the observer will only fire off once, and then this piston and redstone block will end up in the wrong state, and it just kind of messes up the whole item elevator. So I think I'm going to need another item elevator. For now, I'm just going to make sure not to send more than one item at a time, which during the normal crafting process, that works fine, but I was bringing down my shulker boxes, and I just loaded them into that hopper, which tried to send them up there, and then that didn't work very well. Right now, there's plenty of shulker boxes in this system. If I bring more, I'll just put them directly into this chest. This will work for now. One thing I had not considered about these feather falling zombies is that they do not despawn, like, ever. So I have flown more than 128 blocks away, and I've come back, and they're still hanging out here. So this will cause a cumulative bad effect on the farm if I don't come in and kill them. So at the very least, I may need to set something up so that when I turn the machine off, it kills them. Maybe a dispenser with lava that fires off and kills them, something like that. At the very least, I'm gonna have to. For now, I should be able to just come down here and kill them normally. To get rid of them, but this is gonna grow old pretty quickly. I needed a little bit more room in order to lay out all the items that I enchanted. So I already had this shulker box full of pickaxes, but I was missing about half of those. So I replaced all of those. These are all Silk Touch pickaxes, maximum efficiency 5 and everything. And I ended up making another shulker box full of those because I use these quite a lot. And then I did the same thing with shovels. I already had this shulker box full of shovels, and I replaced the ones that were missing and then made another one. And then I made a shulker box full of axes. I did not already have this one. This is brand new. I also made a shulker box full of swords. Same thing, brand new. And then I made 2 shulker boxes full of regular armor. These are just protection for regular armor. 2 of them. I made a shulker box full of fire protection armor. And a shulker box full of blast protection armor. And then I ended up enchanting all of my elytra as well. And then on top of that, I have this is my main. This is what I keep in my ender chest all the time. I made sure to shore all this up. There were some items missing, and clean it up a little bit. One thing I've discovered that's kind of cool is that I can use this concrete maker to crack bookshelves for me. I have a ton of these bookshelves that I got from trading a long time ago, and I never bothered cracking them because it's a bit of a pain, but this makes it actually pretty quick. I do have to be a little bit careful because these bookcases create 3 times as many items of any of the other blocks that I send through this blast chamber. So I do have to pause from time to time between explosions just to make sure that the shulker box loader doesn't get overloaded. Still, this is quite a bit faster than any other method I've found. Before I start working on my blast chamber again, I'd like to finish up this small section of the Nether hub. Alright, so my Nether HUD map is finished. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's really cool looking, I think. I need to figure out something to do with the edges. I'll show you those in a second. Let's just go over the whole map. Take a good look at it. I think this turned out really, really well. So we've got these edges over here that are 3 tall. So obviously I can't walk up them. So I need to figure out something to do here. But I do not want to block off these lights here. These lights are really important to keeping the whole thing lit up. So I need to figure out something there. I've got a few paths here that I need to figure out as well. I think I'm actually going to wait on these. So this one leads up to my my mob switch. That one leads off to my ender portal. And then this one down here leads down to my desert and my mob farm and a whole bunch of other things. And I was originally planning ice roads, but with the soul running thing that's coming in 1.16, I might want to wait on that. So I'm going to hold off on these for now. I do want to figure out this though. But for now, I think this is looking really, really cool. Really happy with this. One of my viewers sent me a link to this tree farm by CCS Covenant and Fallen Breath, pointing out that it's a better tree farm than Omegos. And boy, is it ever. I think this thing is at least twice as fast. This thing is very, very cool. So if I place things down, basically the trees just like vanish the second they grow. They just disappear. This thing is amazing. Very, very cool tree farm. Unfortunately, the problem that I'm having with this is that it's not really compatible with the blast chamber that I set up. It's got its own blast chamber over here, and if I try to compress these logs into a one tall stream of blocks in order to send them through my blast chamber, I'd have to slow down the tree farm in order to do that, and that kind of defeats the purpose. And what I really want to do is just have that 4-in-1 system that I've already set up. Now, if I were only building a tree farm, this is a very cool tree farm. It's super duper fast, and I highly recommend you check it out. It's actually really compact. I don't think it's super resource friendly. There's a lot of expensive resources in here, but this is a very cool tree farm that's super duper fast if you were looking for something like this. This just isn't what I need for right now, and I had an idea for another tree farm in the future that will supply me with lots and lots of bulk logs, so I just don't need something this fast, really. I know, I'm turning down a really cool farm that's super efficient, but I really do have good reasons. Trust me on that. But check this farm out. I'll put a link in the description. All right, then I guess it's time to set up Omego's tree farm here. There's a couple of cool things you can do with Lightmatica that I found pretty useful. So the first is the default hotkey is M, hold down M, and then page up or page down to change the layer mode. I found all below to be the most useful, and then you can use page up, page down to move through the layers. And so that way you can only show, hey, I want to do this layer right now. It's very useful with things that are dense redstone like this. So there's obviously several other layers of redstone underneath this. So I found it very useful to do one layer at a time and just kind of use the page up button as I finish one layer to do the next layer and the next layer and so on. And I found that pretty useful. And then the second thing is to, if you use your tool here and you scroll over to 9 rebuild schematic, and then you scroll to any other regular tool, you can actually like change the schematic in real time. So like I've got all these logs and these leaves that are in the way and they're blocking my vision, and there's I've got logs in there now, but there was redstone components that are behind there. It was pretty hard to see, and so I was able to go in and remove all the leaves and get those out of the way so that I could see what I was building at the time. And I found that very useful as well. Just don't forget you're in rebuild schematic mode, or you'll end up doing something like this when you're trying to place something. and you end up placing a schematic item instead, when actually what I wanted to do was just place the item like so. Predictably, I've had a few issues getting this tree farm working properly. I did unfortunately lose the videos of me working through those issues, but the short of it is that, one, I had a creeper that spawned up there, and he fell down here, and he blew up this area, and I thought I replaced all the blocks, but I ended up missing a couple down there that actually closed the circuit, so all the pistons stayed out, and I figured that one out fairly quickly, and I actually missed a piston in this bottom row. There's pistons behind these honey blocks back there, and I missed one of the two of them, and that took me a while to figure out. And then I've got one more issue that I'm still working through, and that is over here, has to do with the acacia logs. So that is not supposed to look like that at all. So they're these sticky pistons. I think they're actually supposed to fire twice, and so they fire once to push out the regular piston, and then they fire again to bring it back, and they appear to only be firing once. And then when you send a second log through, they start pushing each other down, and after you run it a few times, you end up with like this kind of mess. So I need to figure out what's going on there. Looks like it's just as simple as a missing solid block right there. So it was actually firing twice, it's just this one down here wasn't firing. So if I put this piston back here, let's give some acacia logs another try, because that's what runs through that section. And we'll see if it was working better now. Alright, here we go. See this thing operating? It's working really good. And let's go over and see if it's broken itself after a few logs there. Oh, nope. Nope, looks like it's working great. I've got another small issue here. There is a hopper minecart underneath this dirt block right here, and I'm pretty sure it is full right now. Yep, so it's full, so it's not collecting the items. There is another hopper minecart underneath there that's supposed to grab the items out of this one, but I think they're not aligned properly. So I used Lightmatica to set all this up and not the tutorial by Elmango. So I'll just have to watch the tutorial by Elmango and see how he sets this up. I'm sure there's some little tiny trick of how to get those aligned properly so that they're over each other that I just didn't. I just skipped over because I used the Lightmatica and not his tutorial. And then that should get that part working. Looks like it's actually relatively simple. The second hopper minecart wasn't necessary at all. That was actually a remnant that ended up in my template in accident. Sometimes they get pushed around and that happens. So it looks like the hopper minecart actually needs to straddle this hopper and this piston. So if I place a cobblestone fence here, place the rails down, and then if I push it into that cobblestone fence there, and then there we go. And I'm going to have to fly out of here, hopefully without knocking that thing or anything else. There we go. And then I'll have to replace all those blocks and push a dirt block into this hopper minecart here, and then everything should be working fine. Looks like I also need to push a piston down with this dirt block. This would have been a lot easier if I had done this in the first place without all these extra blocks in the way, but that seems to have done the trick there. There we go, yeah, so it's straddling both of the blocks. Alright, I've got all the blocks back in place, and I've tested it, and everything seems to be working properly. This is actually a really important step, because any of the saplings that land on this observer or these dispensers here, they're going to end up getting pushed by the pistons into this block right here. So if you're not collecting those, that's where most of the saplings are going to land. So you're going to end up losing out on a lot of saplings, and with jungle saplings, that's actually quite important. So I'm glad I got this working. So I think that actually puts a nail in this tree farm. I think we're done here. Now that everything's working, it's time to lay down the building. yourself a favor. Don't ever mix ice and redstone. I don't know why I do this to myself. I had it all perfectly planned out and creative so that none of the lights inside would melt any of the ice, except I placed a couple in survival because there were mobs that were spawning, and I forgot to remove them when I set up the building. And naturally, they melted some of the ice, and naturally, it took out some of the redstone. And I thought I had replaced it all, but apparently I hadn't. And I ended up slagging a big part of the tree farm. I had to basically rebuild the big part of that. And then I actually blew up the blast chamber down there and had to replace that as well. So now that that's all out of the way, the building is done. And I think it turned out really well. Got some exterior decoration going on here. I'm really happy with how these bushes turned out. That was just kind of like a spur of the moment decision. I'm like, hey, let's throw some bushes down, see if it looks, I think that looks really good. Got some trails going up. One last thing we got to do. Where'd he go? My little black cat here. Had him for a long time. Got him at the witch farm in like one of my single digit episodes or something like that. Had him a long time, and he's been sitting right at the doorstep of this building. So I want to keep him around. That'll do. I like having him around. So the next thing I want to do is I've got a building planned for this mushroom. This is Nether wart farm. So let's take care of that. If you've watched any of my other videos, you may have noticed that I'm much better a redstoner than I am a designer. Now, I do think I'm a passably decent designer, and I've definitely gotten a lot better at it. And the times that I've been the most successful are when I've tried to push myself outside of my comfort zone and try something different. And that's what I wanted to do here. I wanted something that matched the modern building style of all the other buildings on my floating island, but I wanted to see if I could get that same aesthetic using red nether bricks. I just think it's a really cool block, and it's on theme with the Nether wart farm. And I had a bunch of black glass that was left over from my nether hub, and those ended up looking good together. And then regular nether brick made a good accent block. So I came up with a design that I think looks pretty good. And this farm is basically just a large box, and it's easy to design around large boxes, but I think it's harder to make them look visually interesting. So what I've done here is I've rounded off the corners, and I've actually made it non-symmetrical in order to add a little extra visual interest to the building. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think this ended up working out pretty well. It's definitely a bit different than the other buildings, but I think that's okay. And I ended up switching out. There was originally a wall of shulker boxes here, and for the same reason as I did it on this tree farm, left some scaffolding there, I ended up swapping this out for the new shulker box design that I came up with in the last episode, where you actually have access to the shulker box. I think this is a pretty cool design. And what's kind of interesting is I ended up leaving it kind of exposed here, and I definitely could have covered this up with blocks or something like that, but I thought this looked kind of cool. So yeah, so I'm pretty happy with how this building turned out. But I'm out of time today for this episode, so I want to thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope you have a good one.